everybody, and welcome back to another lovely episode of Combat Talk. I am your MMA host, Sophia Foyer, and today we have a special guest joining us. We have Matt Giancarlo. This man has been in the MMA world for over 19 years, 20 years. He's a BJJ black belt. He is 7-1 in MMA and owns his very own gym in Crimson Guard BJJ in Oakland, Illinois. He runs his own event, Nitro, which we will be getting into. And he is trained with some of the greatest in the sport, Chael Sonnen, Matt Lindland, Clay Guida, and Josh Barnett. And we're going to welcome Matt on. So, Matt, thank you for coming on the show today. It is great to talk to you.
Yeah, no problem. Good to be here.
Okay, first, we're going to start with the first question. We're going to get into some background info. How did you actually get into MMA?
All right. So many years ago, predating what the technology of the listeners maybe even used to, I was at a video store. So back then, long before streaming, before DVDs were even around, I was looking to rent some VHSs, and I found one that said Ultimate Fighting Championship. And this is how old it was. It was UFC 6. It was in the new release section. So this was in the 90s. And this was, I think the UFC is at 316 right now or something. I don't know. I lost count. It was UFC 6. I think this was 1996 at the time. And, I'm just reading the back of the box, and I was a big pro wrestling fan. And I'm like, this looks like pro wrestling, but it's not, because it's real and they're actually fighting each other. So I rented it just to kind of see what it was about. And, I was very intrigued at a young age. And then, fast forwarding a little bit, when I started to get a little bit older, that was always kind of in the back of my mind. And at that time, there was nowhere to train at. So I still live in Chicago, but I was living there. And, I started looking up jiu-jitsu schools when I was 16 where I could drive to, and there wasn't many. There was only a very small handful. Everything was about 30 minutes away. So I picked Team Corral in Schererville, Indiana to make that my first school. And I wrestled my freshman year in high school, but then by the next year, I kind of just wanted to dabble more into MMA and jiu-jitsu and less organized team sports, and just kind of be a little bit more selfish, less for the school's team and more for myself. Yeah, when I got on the mat, this is 2006 now, for the first time at Braulio Corral School, I pretty much never stopped. That was the beginning of it. I was a fan, and I just kind of wanted to do it for myself.
I love hearing that, and as someone that trains too, my old school used to be right near Corrals, and it was very interesting. But you talk about your start in MMA. Now, getting into your amateur career, what was that first training camp into the first fight like for you?
So when I wanted to fight, I switched gyms. I went to more of an MMA-based gym, and it was a lot closer for me to get to, and there's tons of really good fighters in the room. UFC vets, WEC vets, Ultimate Fighter vets, so on and so forth. So it was pretty intense, because I still to this day don't think I was very good back then. I was okay. I was mediocre, but not the skills that I've honed in now. This was back in 2009, but I wasn't bad for a 20-year-old at the time, making my MMA debut. But compared to a lot of the people in the room that I was training with, I think I had a little bit more jiu-jitsu skills, but when it comes to that athleticism and just the physical force that a lot of these UFC guys were bringing in, we had a bunch of Illinois State wrestling champions, tons of college wrestlers in the room, and I just felt like a small fish in a big pond there in a good way. And that's exactly what I wanted. That gym was notorious for pretty much beating up on people, it wasn't meant for everybody, that place. And the ones who did stick around showed their sheer toughness. And I'm I don't care if I get beaten down every day. I'm going to keep coming back. And yeah, it was a pretty cool experience, training with such animals at the time. A lot of hard work in there. And going into the cage the first time after a training camp like that, I'll be honest, my opponent seemed so easy, because I was used to trying to take down all these NCAA wrestlers and Big Ten wrestlers and UFC vets and this and that. And then when I went into another guy who, only had a small handful of fights, he seemed really easy.
After that first fight, and especially for someone like me that competes in jiu-jitsu, for you, it seems like you fell in love with the sport of jiu-jitsu. Now, being different from all the other fighters, at the time, everybody was specialized in one aspect of fighting. Compared to today, that's completely different. But having that jiu-jitsu with you, what was it about jiu-jitsu, for especially in MMA, that stuck with you? Like, that made you say, like, this is kind of what I want to do after my MMA career?
So, like, when I was done fighting, I wanted to keep doing jiu-jitsu?
Yes.
You know, I always loved being a technician. I always found, like, discovering new moves and learning and being able to apply, being able to teach. I always really liked that. Honestly, even getting into MMA, I never planned on having as many fights as I did. I just wanted one or two, just to experience it. And I always just wanted to open up a school. My long-term goal, even from the beginning, was to eventually coach. My favorite grappler of all time never fought MMA, and he's who I got my black belt under, and his name is Mark Lehman. I only met him for the first time in 2018, so like it was really cool for me to be able to train with him like full time now since then. But like Mark, he was known as a coach. He was brought in for the Ultimate Fighter 1, 2, and 4 as the grappling coach, and he was in so many corners of like UFC champions and this and that. And that's kind of who I always like modeled myself after, is Mark. And he's actually, like, when I first wanted to get into jiu-jitsu, before I even stepped foot on the mat, I learned from like some of his like demonstration videos that the UFC used to play at like on their pay-per-views in between fights. So that was kind of always like, all right, he had Cobra Kai Jiu-Jitsu in Las Vegas at the time, and that was always my original thing that I wanted to do after MMA, was to kind of do what he was doing. I looked him up. I met him years ago at a UFC event in Chicago backstage. He gave me his number. I looked him up in 2018 because I was assuming he was still in Texas at the time with Team Takedown. And I read that he was actually in Wisconsin, and I looked up the address, and it was 2 hours from me. And I'm like, that's not bad. So I started going up every single week to Wisconsin to train with him when I saw that he moved over there. Yeah, he was always a big influence to me throughout my whole career. And it's kind of cool that it like came full circle where, you know, that's my coach now since, 2018, and that's who I got my black belt under. But yeah, so like I always just really was interested in technique. What I lacked, like I mentioned, like with some of these like training partners I had when I first started fighting, they were monster wrestlers. They were super tough, big, strong, athletic, could go forever. But I always felt like that, like my time to shine with those guys was the technique part, where I had a much bigger arsenal of moves. So what I lacked in like years of like wrestling and that like utter grind, I made up for with like answers to like everything that they could possibly put me in, so that's kind of like what I really like about it.
Now, after hearing that, you do have your own gym called Crimson Guard in Oakland, Illinois. And one of the things that I was particularly interested in, and even as someone that competes and just a general fan of the sport, what was it like to start coaching, especially younger kids and people that wanted to pursue a career in this sport? Like, what was it being like there in that corner, being able to say, yeah, I could play a part in someone's life like this?
Yeah, so I used to coach MMA fighters. I used to corner pro fighters, this and that. I didn't really like that much, just because dealing with young fighters, a lot of them just think they know everything. They want to, it started to kind of like bug me a little bit, where they have the answers more than any of the coaches, this and that. And truthfully, I was like that too when I started. I get it. A lot of them, I just want to fight. I just want to knock somebody out, blah, blah, blah. I don't want to do this jiu-jitsu thing. I was getting that a lot at my old gym. And that's like one of the big reasons why I left, and I decided to open up my school. And it's not just there. Like, there's so many fight teams where like, and so many fighters will say when they retire, it's like, once they're not in fight camp, they enjoy jiu-jitsu more, because it's more of like something that they could actually like doing instead of being there because they have to be there. A lot of fighters don't realize how much negative vibes they put out while they're in like a fight camp, but they really do. And then when like you go from that environment, and then you go to an environment where you're teaching, whether it be competitive submission grapplers or kids or just hobbyists, there's so much more positive energy because they want to be there for jiu-jitsu, instead of, let's just say, a guy who just wants to stand up in his fight and like, oh yeah, I have to do this jiu-jitsu, even though I don't really want to. I don't like it, but I know I have to. like there's a lot of negativity there. But when you're running a school where it's like, it's primarily a jiu-jitsu school and this is what people want to do, they're happy to be here because they made that decision. Like, this is what I want to spend my time doing. So it was definitely a way better environment that I put myself in. It was much needed. That's like my happy place. I love it there. Like on Fridays when we're closed, like today, I'm like, oh, this sucks. I want to be at the school. I want to be teaching right now. And as for kids, they're really fun. I have a funny relationship with a lot of them because I have to coach them and I have to be a little tough on them, but they're also kids where I get to goof off and like, I try to play a role where I could teach them really good techniques, but I could also kind of like pick on them a little bit in funny ways where if they're not doing something right, I'll take a dodgeball and whip it at them. Obviously it's not going to hurt them. They laugh, but it's a good way to have fun while like I'm trying to get them to take it seriously, but not too seriously where we could still have fun with, but they're still doing a good job, you know?
Right. And that was kind of the thing that I think a lot of jiu-jitsu athletes especially look for is a good gym where they feel safe and comfortable, where they also could have fun too. But also looking into what you do now, you recently, like we were talking before the interview, you said that you trained with John Danaher and you actually have a seminar with Gary Tonin. If we could get into that for a little bit. John Danaher, he's obviously a jiu-jitsu practitioner, one of the greatest coaches out there right now. What was your experience like and some of the things that you got to learn from him being at his gym?
Yeah, I mean, I'm personally convinced that out of those two names that, and this is my opinion, you know, everybody has different opinions, but in my opinion, John Danaher is the number one jiu-jitsu coach in the world. And further on, this might be controversial, but whatever, I feel like Gary Tonin's the best leg locker in the world. I really always admired that whole team, even before they were New Wave, Danaher Death Squad. I was really interested when they started coming up the rankings. And then part of me running the school means that like, I'm teaching my students. I'm focusing on them so much. And sometimes I kind of get lost in that where like I was realizing I haven't really gotten to improve myself that much lately. So I decided to, I already briefly knew Gary just through like text at the time. I shot him a text message. Hey, what's your schedule like? I would like to come out and train with you guys. And if you have time, if you're willing to work with me on the side. And he said, yeah, you know, so we set that up and I knew that John Danaher had some surgeries coming up. So Gary kind of gave me a rough schedule on when a good time would be to go there before John was going to be in the hospital, everything. So yeah, I went out there, to Austin to train with New Wave. John is a great teacher. He's phenomenal. It was kind of funny seeing him in person because he teaches the way his instructional videos are. He's very intricate. He talks a lot. He uses a lot of like big adjectives in between, you know, in his sentences. And it was almost like watching like one of his instructional videos. It was kind of funny, but he was so smart and I got to pick his brain a lot and ask him questions and, you know, what he would do from here, what he would do from there. And as a lot of people do there, like, you know, when you're in the room with John Danaher, like everybody knows to like use that opportunity to get him to answer things. And he's very willing, you know, great guy. And then Gary Tonin just completely changed like how I even view leg locks. And, you know, I got to work with him and then, yeah, he's coming out on the 31st to Oakwan at the Oakwan Pavilion and he's going to do a seminar and I'm really excited. Like I said, he really opened up my mind on like a lot of things that I see things in a different way now. And so did John. And yeah, I'm really excited for the seminar as well. And I'm definitely going to keep going out to Austin more, you know, when I get the time and I could, you know, go away from the school for a few days and focus on myself a little bit. It's a great place to be. That's for sure.
I love hearing that. I know I keep saying that, but you know, I feel the same way about John Danaher. He has a mind that a lot of us athletes wish we had also. But with that seminar, you also run Nitro, a grappling event. I want to kind of get into how you started that and what are some of the things we can look forward to in this event and how can we watch it? How can we come see it?
Yeah, so I used to promote and matchmake for mixed martial arts events. I started with Cutthroat MMA, that kind of fizzled out. Then we had United Combat League that was sold to a little bit bigger company, but UCL was huge in the area for a while. We had really big events at Hammond Civic Center at Bourbon Street. We were bringing in UFC vets to fight. Like it was getting really really cool. COVID kind of was the end of that. It sold to like a parent company, and then they kind of just fizzled as well. Kind of saw that coming. It was fun, and I wanted to kind of do what I did, but for jiu-jitsu now. So this is our second event. It's pro super fights. We start the card off with like a youth wrestling portion, and then we go into like the adult jiu-jitsu matches. It's cool because they like the rules. It's pretty much not many when it comes to grappling. All common sense submissions are legal, meaning like you can't do anything dumb like gouge their eyes or, bite them or anything. But any regular jiu-jitsu submission, whether it be like a spine lock, a neck crank, a heel hook, totally legal, and there's no points. It's just submission only, and if it goes the distance, there's 3 judges to score. So that's what a lot of people like too, is it's not in the hands of like just the referee to decide. You have to like sway 3 judges, so there's less like controversial decisions. So the people on the card love that format. Like you can't really go wrong with it. There's no controversy that exists. It's either you submit them or 3 judges decide. We have this one. It's being headlined by Jeff Curran, who's a UFC and WEC vet. Absolute legend in the area in MMA and jiu-jitsu. He owns Team Curran Martial Arts up in Crystal Lake, Illinois. And he's facing Mike Reyna, who is one of the original black belts in the Northwest Indiana area. So it's going to be a pretty cool event.
And I kind of want to touch base about that. How was it coming about with Jeff Curran and Mike Reyna? Like, how was that even possible to get?
So I've known Jeff for years, just here and there. Like I never got to train with him or anything because Crystal Lake was a little bit far for me, but that was always one of the gyms that I would have chosen to do my like fight career at. He was just so far away. But I've known Jeff just being involved in local mixed martial arts and booking his fighters and this and that. So I reached out to him if he was interested. He said, yeah. So I wanted to get an opponent around his size and his age. And I thought about Mike Reyna. I'm friends with his brother Steve on Facebook, and I had him on my podcast recently. Steve used to fight. I didn't really have any direct contact with Mike because I couldn't find him on Facebook or anything. So I just messaged Steve. I was like, hey, do you think Mike would be interested in this match with Jeff Curran? And he's like, yeah. He gave me his number and called him up, and he was really excited about it. So that's a match that he wanted for years. It was just never really offered. So he was pretty pumped. So yeah, it's a good local matchup of people roughly around their same age and same experience. It fits really well. It's not going to be like a one-sided match. That's what I like. It's fair for both of them.
Going off of that, now we've seen how kind of like ADCC does it, where some of the MMA fighters that went big, they like Shale, who competed with ADCC for a little bit. Would you be interested in having not saying per se only big fighter names, but also amateur fighters that want to explore more in grappling? Would you be open to having MMA fighters headline a grappling event and having that held at Nitro?
Yeah, I'm trying to think if we had any fighters before, like any MMA guys on our last one. I think 1 or 2 maybe have had a couple fights. But yeah, it's like I kind of go through our applications, and whoever makes most sense to be on the card I can't announce it yet, but our October one, it's like 99% locked in. One of them, I really do want to announce it. I'm just not gonna, but one of them is locked in. I'll give a big hint. He's from 10th Planet, directly under Eddie Bravo. So I'll be flying him in from San Diego area. That's as much as I'll bring in, but he's pretty famous in the grappling world. Most people know who he is. So there's a lot of hints there. His opponent, I'm not going to say, but his opponent is an extremely decorated MMA fighter who's a black belt in jiu-jitsu as well, who's had international MMA fights, extremely big organizations and fights in Japan and so on and so forth. So I'll just leave it at that cliffhanger until I get the official confirmation. I just talked to him the other day. He said he really wants to do it. He's going to fully let me know when. But the other side, the 10th Planet individual, is 100% locked in and ready to go. So it's going to be cool when I announce it. It's going to be a really, really big main event.
Oh, you're making me excited. I'm getting excited hearing this. I hate the fact that I can't know, because this is so mean. Matt, I can't believe you. We're getting off to a good start, and I can't even know, but maybe I'll find out.
I gotta keep it secret for now, but yeah.
Yeah, I'll know before you guys, hopefully.
It's gonna be big, though.
I'm so glad to hear that.
It'll be big.
But one of the things I did want to touch on is you had talked about briefly, you commentated and you have reffed and judged. What were those experiences of judging fights and especially commentating for local promotions?
Yeah, I've done everything. I've reffed, I've judged, I've commentated. I've been a locker room inspector, making sure people are legally taping their hands. I've done it all. I was working for a sanctioning body for the state of Illinois for a while, so I'd go to events and whatever they would ask me to do for that day. One day might be judging, one day might be locker room inspecting. Commentating, I've done a lot of local events. I can't think of any job aside from being like the lead commissioner in mixed martial arts that I haven't done at this point. Like it's like whether it be in the cage, which there's not much to do besides fighting or cornering, but obviously done that. And then, behind the scenes, it's, I think I've done every possible job besides, like I said, being the head commissioner. I haven't ring announced at an MMA event, but I do for like my Nitro events. So like, there's not much that I haven't done.
And one of the questions, it might be a little risky, but I'm going to take a shot here, is you said you've judged and you've reffed, and I kind of want to know, what's the craziest thing you've seen fighters pull off and think they could get away with?
I've depends on how. Okay, I've definitely been at events where there were clear fake fights where I could see the fighters talking to each other and whispering to each other. Unfortunately, that happens here and there. It's not common, but believe it or not, I have witnessed a few scripted fights that like weren't announced as fake. I won't say who they were. That would probably be the craziest thing. I won't say too many details on this, but I was once reffing and a promoter yelled to me, "Stand him up, ref." And I'm thinking the promoter wants me to stand him up. No, that's not happening. This isn't going to be Elite XC where I'm, how they try to pay Seth Petrozelli not to take Kimbo Slice down. Believe it or not, like mixed martial arts is sometimes shady. It's pretty cleaned up now, but back in the day when it was more the Wild West, I've been at events, working like maybe even video and stuff where judges, before there was a sanctioning body, judges were handpicked by the promoter and often were teammates of like the main event fighter, the co-main event fighter. And on controversial decisions, it was 3 of the fighters' teammates scoring it for that fighter, an audience of boos, the crowd going nuts booing, but the 3 judges were teammates. It's, like I said, it's a lot more cleaned up now, but back in the day, there was some shady stuff. But like when I was like judging, there was one that I was surprised, but I was the split judge, meaning that I was the one judge that scored at the other guy, the other 2, so there's always going to be that too, where, you just have completely different opinions on things. But yeah, there's always been some crazy stuff that I've seen, but some of them, I'd see them tie up and kind of whisper each other and almost make sure they're faking punches and not fully connecting and things. And I'm like, this is just bad, but I don't really see that happen anymore though. But long time ago when it was just a different time, yeah, it would happen every once in a while. And
I can't believe what I'm hearing. Like the fact that I've heard crazy stories throughout the years, like stuff like that happening. But one of the things I do want to briefly touch on before we end the interview, unfortunately, but you said you were a split decision judge at one point. What is it like, especially having experience in this sport, having to make that call? Because sometimes we see judges might not have as much experience compared to a lot of the other judges where they've actually fought, they've actually trained. What was it like to make those tough calls?
Yeah, so that's what was funny is that event specifically, I actually remember going to check in as like an employee of the state, and the person checking me in, who I didn't even know this person's name, I don't remember, but she definitely did not train, had no MMA experience, nothing. I think she was just a friend of one of the commissioners who gave her a job. And she started like kind of like quizzing me, like, have you judged before? Do you have experience with this? I might need to tell you what to look for. It's like, all right, hold on. And I kind of explained who I was and said, okay. Yeah, I don't even remember who the other two judges were, but they definitely weren't like other fighters or anything, and that's what was kind of funny. It's like the fight I was watching, it wasn't a very good fight, the one that I was a split judge on, but yeah, it was just kind of funny that like the other two, did the opposite. But that's common. And with inexperienced judges, like I'll just quickly touch on, I'm not trying to complain about my one loss or anything, but like that was before there was a commission. So again, it was just like handpicked judges. There was no bias or anything in the judging, but we went to a 29-28 official decision. So I lost the first two rounds. I won the third round. I was shocked that it wasn't a 28-28. So basically meaning my last round, it was complete and utter domination by me. Like I took the guy down right away, just blasted him with a vicious ground and pound, threw him in an arm triangle. I hear the 10-second mark, so I just started ground and pounding him again. It was the most obvious 10-8 round in the world that could have been scored because it was just so one-sided. So I did the math in my head. I'm like, all right, he won 10-9, 10-9, and then I just won 10-8. So it's 28-28. So, of course, we go in the center. I'm assuming it's going to be a draw mathematically. They raise his hand 29-28. So I go up to one of the judges, and I said, hey, how was I not scored a 10-8 round? And his response was, what's a 10-8 round? I never heard of that. And I'm just like, see, this is why I sometimes like hate this,
I don't even know what to say because I feel like it's not even that time period where you were fighting. I feel like that's even happening now still to this day. In my own opinion, I agree with you 100% because I feel like we do see a lot of the time that judges are biased because maybe, how do I say, like how Demetrius Johnson was fighting. Like they wanted him to win because they saw his career rising. Like they picked him over some fighters, and that was very controversial. But I think that's a big problem today too that I've noticed is not even just with MMA, but it's like in every combat sport. Sometimes you have biased judges and say, "Oh, we gotta pick the other guy." But obviously talking to you today, it's made me realize so many new things that I didn't even know about, and coming to light and realizing a lot more about this sport, and I thank you for your time today. But before we go, is there anything you want to give advice to younger people, and not even younger people, but combat athletes, and how can they reach you to come to your gym, and how do they get in contact with you for Nitro?
Okay, yeah. So nitrofighter.com is where you could either buy tickets if you want to see the super fights, or if you want to sign up for the Gary Tonin seminar. From personal experience, if you do jiu-jitsu, go to it. I've been training 19 years, and my work with Gary really catapulted me more than I've ever could have imagined. So yeah, I've been urging to all my students and stuff, he's the guy who gave Gordon Ryan his black belt. Enough said. You know what I mean? If you can't learn from him, then I don't know what to tell you. Yeah. And then, my school is in Oakland, Illinois. We got about 170 members between kids and adults. It's really popular. People like it there. That's Crimson Guard Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu right at 103rd and Cicero. So if you're in the area, yeah, feel free to come by. Well,
I thank you, Matt, for taking your time out of your day to come on the show. Hopefully we get to work together at one point. Maybe I do your event. Maybe. I'm going to have to apply because I'm getting interested now. I'm going to have to get on this Nitro cards. Seeming really interesting to me. But
for sure. Sounds good.
I appreciate you, Matt. Thank you so much for coming on the show. And I hope to future events and seeing you in person and hopefully watching future stars come out of your show. But thank you for listening. And guys, that was the interview with Matt Giancarlo. Obviously, you can find him on Instagram at Matt Giancarlo and his gym, Crimson Guard Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in Oakland, Illinois. You guys need to check him out. Excellent coach, and I really do recommend him. Please go check him out.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Matt.